So you don't know what genre is your favourite, you don't know what genre you like to read, you just kind of pick up everything. That was me, and I'm here to help you figure out which genre you actually really love. My name's Abby from Autumn of Pellinor, and today we're going to be helping you pick your favourite genre. So for me, this process kind of occurred accidentally over a few years. I had found my favourite genre when I was younger, when I was a child, and then I came back to reading when I was at university. So I knew exactly what I liked to read when I was a kid, and I would pick the exact books that I loved. I would pick a lot of niche books. It worked really great. And then I stopped reading for ages because of education, and it just fucked me up completely. And then I got back to uni and I started reading again. I had more free time, I was living by myself, and it just worked a lot better. But the problem was, the way I got back into reading was through Booktube. So I was getting all of these recommendations across all of these genres, and I fell behind because I hadn't been reading for years. So I was like, right, well, I need to read all of these. And I've been kind of catching up, and I've been kind of getting over that. And it's taken a long time. I started getting into Booktube in 2015, 2016. It's now 2020, and I've only this year, in the past month, figured out again and had it in my mind. I know what genre I love, and I know what my favourite genre is. I didn't for the past 4 years. 5 years, I didn't know. Now obviously you could do this the long way like me and just kind of figure it out as you go, but I've got a few little tips and tricks to help you figure it out. This is for people who really don't know. If you're like stuck between a couple genres, that's fine. Lots of people have got multiple genres that they love, and lots of people love lots of genres, and that is who they are. But for me, I was like, oh yeah, I like this, I like this, I like this, I like this, and in reality, although I like a lot of them, there's only one genre that I really love. So, step by step. First off, do you use Goodreads? If you do, this is going to be a lot easier than if you don't. Look at your 4 and 5 star rated reads. If you don't use Goodreads, you're going to have to search your shelves and pick out the ones that you rated highly. If you do use Goodreads, just go and search through your read books and search by highest rated. You want to look for any similarities. For some people, their favourite thing isn't a specific genre, it might be a theme. You might like World War II specifically rather than just history books, and they could span different genres. So take your 4 and 5 star books and find the common feature. Find what factor unites a lot of these. So if I did that now, I would come across a lot of books that I've rated 5 stars that don't fit into the fantasy genre. So this isn't the be all and end all step, this just helps you narrow down the sort of books that you really love. The next step is to think about what you reach for on your shelves. If you're like me and you have a decently large TBR, which I'm trying to get rid of, I ended up picking mine up from seeing books that I saw all over Booktube and just the Booktonet in general when I saw them in charity shops. They were like £1, and I was like, oh well, this mystery book is £1, I'll pick it up. And I ended up with 200 books at one point, which is not, if you want that, cool, it's not what I want. But look at what you actually reach for if you do have a larger TBR. Look at the books that you go towards, especially if you want like a guaranteed quick read, a guaranteed 5 star read. What are the books you go for? I realised that I do obviously try and read all these books, I do enjoy a lot of them, but if I want a book that I know I'm going to love, and if I'm reaching for a book, if I've been in a reading slump and I'm trying to find something to get me out of it, it's fantasy that I reach towards. Anything on the spectrum of fantasy, from more like modern day, what the fuck is the word? Contemporary. Fucking hell. More modern day contemporary fantasy like Skullduggery Pleasant, or if I want full on like Priory of the Orange Tree, fancy ass dragons. That's what I reach for. It never clicked that what I wanted was fantasy, and I do actually really enjoy lighter fantasy as well. I love the entire range, and it never clicked, it never clicked. I was so excited when it clicked. And then my last big tip is, if you were a childhood reader, not everyone was, some people do start later on in life coming to a love of reading, but if you were a childhood reader, what were your favourites? Now this can change over time, but if you are struggling to figure out what your favourite genre is, it is a good place to start. What did you enjoy when you were younger? For me, there is a lot of fantasy on my shelves from when I was a child, and that should have been a big clue, and for some reason it wasn't. It is what's predominantly on my shelves. The other genres that I like are also there, but predominantly it is fantasy. Have a look if you were a childhood reader, or if you are of an older age and you want to look back to when you were in your 20s, what were you reading then? Just look back on times before, what was your favourite genre then. It could have completely changed, but you'll probably have taken aspects from it. You may have loved big books and those for children were mostly fantasy, or you may have loved short books and those for children were mostly contemporary, and then so you'll take from that and go, okay, so I like that, I like this, I like that, and you grab your bits and you piece it together. That is kind of how I came to realise my love of fantasy. The last thing is, if you don't know, if you've got no fucking clue, if you've just come to Booktube, if you've never read before, or like me when I came back to reading, if you've had a big long gap because of things like education or other life circumstances, the best thing you can do is listen to all these different reviews and see what sounds cool. Out of these like big hyped books that lots of people are giving 5 stars, listen out to what sounds cool, buy it, read it, see what you think. You need to have something in your arsenal to compare it to be able to figure out what your favourite genre is. So if you're just starting out being in the reading world and you're like, what the fuck is going on? You're gonna have to read some books, I'm afraid, and you're gonna read some books that you don't like. That's part of being a reader, is reading stuff and you're like, why am I reading this? Feel free to DNF it, but then you know that that isn't your thing. I don't know why it took me so bloody long to figure out that I liked fantasy. I like any sort of fantasy. So like my favourite books as a kid were, if you go for like any sort of fantasy, I loved Ali Carter's Gallagher Girls. Technically a girl's fucking hell. Technically a girl's spy school isn't fantasy, but at the same time it kind of is. And then I love The Gift, the Pellinor series. Hi! I loved Aragon, Maximum Ride, loved Northern Lights, the whole His Dark Materials, loved that. There are other genres that I did enjoy. I've always enjoyed historical fiction, of the various sectors that I love out of that. Historical fiction is therefore a secondary genre for me, another one that I love and that I will read from, but it's not my primary genre. And it took me eventually having this slump this year because of everything and being like, okay, I just need a quick read that I'm gonna love, that I'm like 99% sure is gonna be amazing. And for me that was, oh, I've put it away, that was The End of the Day by Claire North, which is fantasy in a contemporary setting. I sped through it in one day and I was back into reading again. It's so fucking annoying, to be honest, after having struggled for 4 or 5 years now to find my genre, reading through a lot of books that I'm like, yeah, it gets 3 stars, it's not a bad book, but I don't particularly enjoy it. To have reached this point now where I know why I didn't enjoy so many of these books, it's so annoying. I have so many books on my shelves that I'm looking at and I'm like, I know why I picked you up, but I don't know if I'm gonna still enjoy this. I don't know if I would have enjoyed it anyway, but like, there's a lot of thrillers on there. At one point I went through this phase of buying a hell ton of thrillers. I like thrillers, I enjoy them, but not enough to warrant having so fucking many on my TBR. What, like, I don't even know. So I'm like debating whether I'm gonna cull my TBR or not and like reduce it to books that I actually care about. Who knows? But yes, if you want to avoid being like me, look through your highest rated books, pick out the common features. You need to just be more conscious of your reading. I was very much just following trends and picking up books that I'd heard of from other people, and it's taken me far too many years to realise the genre that I actually like and have always liked. Hopefully I can save someone else from the same fate. Let me know what your favourite genre is down in the comments below. Tell me, and tell me if yours is fantasy. Give me some recommendations, because I always need fancy I have enough books, but I always need fancy recommendations. And if you enjoyed watching the video, click subscribe. I release new content every Saturday. It's just kind of whenever I fucking remember, but I try and make it every Saturday. We'll see, we'll see. But yes, click subscribe if you want to see some more from me. Make sure to click like, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye! Where the fuck is my phone? Found it.